Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside
and outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
Today, I have the pleasure of introducing David Kaufer. David is the father of an 18-year-old non-speaking autistic individual, Stone, whose journey to finding his voice through a spelling methodology at age 17 profoundly changed their lives. As a passionate advocate for inclusion and presuming competence, David has become a voice for other parents navigating similar challenges. His experience as a father, coupled with his professional background in marketing and storytelling, equips him to share insights on how families, educators, and healthcare providers can create more inclusive environments. David's personal journey inspires and encourages others to see potential where others may not. Welcome, David. This is a fabulous topic of conversation. I'm really looking forward to where this goes today. So thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really honored and excited to be here. I love your discussions, and I think this is a really important topic for a lot of people.
It's absolutely important because, like you were saying in your bio, we want to presume competence. We want to presume that our children can do so very, very much instead of looking at them in a way, oh, they can't do that. And I know I have several families, several people who are really interested in this, in the fact that we're talking about the autistic individuals, right? We shared before, as we were doing the pre-show, that our oldest son, is on the autism spectrum. And I also am working with the family right now. And so this information is going to be so beneficial for so many people. So audience, stay tuned because we're looking for some really great nuggets to be dropped during this episode. Tell us a little bit more about your family, if you would. Tell us a little bit more about Stone. What kind of was the process with this diagnosis when you knew things were going kind of wonky, and what kind of challenges you had in those early years?
Yeah, I'll try to consolidate it, right? Like it's hard to get 18 years into 1 minute, but really, so again, Stone is a twin. We have 18-year-old twin boys. His brother is now a freshman, actually at University of Washington. But for the early on, once they were born, what's interesting is Stone was actually, we're talking really early as babies, infants, starting to hit those developmental milestones. Stone was actually hitting those a little before Ty, and so once we started seeing some signs, when some of this, speech kind of went away, some of the, starting to see some of the behaviors, fortunately, I guess you could say, we were kind of on it fairly quickly. We were able to get an early diagnosis just before his third birthday because we were concerned, and it was confirmed he was diagnosed on the spectrum. And again, as we mentioned before, non-speaking. And he was pretty much completely non-speaking until about 4 or 5 when some of the words started to emerge, but basically had been what I would call as an unreliable speaker, really kind of piecing together some words, very short sentences. But, for all intents and purposes, it was really challenging to communicate. So the goal always has been to try to unlock that communications piece, right? Again, like so many other people who are in the same situation, I think I was reading something along the lines of, the estimates are between 30 to 50% of those diagnosed on the spectrum have some type of, communication barrier, whether again, it's non or unreliable speech. So certainly not alone. And so, got him into, the early education, all those programs through the school district, intensive ed. And, we ran into a lot of roadblocks early on. So he was kind of in the same intensive ed classroom from first through third grade, which is how our school district did it. And then they had a second, fourth through sixth grade separate inclusive classroom. But, we had pushed for one-on-one support. We had enlisted support from a local organization, which is great, the Washington Autism Alliance, to try to advocate. But we were denied, and so it was more and more frustrating because, again, of course, the school district used standardized tests to try to, quote unquote, measure his his IQ or whatever, his intellectual capability. And, these kids don't do well in standardized tests because of they have different disabilities. So fast forward to high school, I had a friend of mine who called me and introduced me basically to the spelling methodology. She happened to know of another family who had a son who she knew was very much like Stone, had these communication challenges all his life, actually in the Portland area as well. And she just said, she just wanted me to know about it. Like, hey, have you heard about it? There's a book, you might be interested in the book. So I actually had already bought the book, ironically. I had seen it on one of the forums and I just hadn't read it. And so I sat down, read it that weekend, bawled my eyes out because I saw the success that they had come. I was able to get some additional information directly from the author. And he encouraged me. He's like, dude, fly to San Diego because one of the leading practitioners has practice down in San Diego. Get down there, do this, and I guarantee you in 6 months, you're going to be talking about what kind of college he's going to be going to. And I mean, to me, that was just so mind-blowing. Like, I mean, because again, at that point, we couldn't even, I said, I'll be happy if he could tell me what he wants for dinner,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's where we were, but he was right. He was right.
Wow.
So I haven't actually heard of this methodology.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about what it is, how it works. If
I kind of left you dangling there a little bit. So the methodology, and there's a couple different forms / flavors of it, but it's kind of known as the spelling methodology or spelling to communicate. And really what it is this, again, we talked about presuming competence. And it's understanding that with a lot of these kids, the challenge actually is in their motor skills and their apraxia and the brain body disconnect. So their bodies are doing things that they can't control. And conversely, they can't control their body to do things that they want them to control. So things like talking, right, that we know require very fine motor skills and even writing and even some of the AAC programs that are there with the PICs. If you can't control your body, you're not going to get reliable answers. So I'm just going to slide off screen for a second because I have a prop for you.
Okay.
So I have, here's a sample letterboard.
Okay.
So, you can see it has, numbers and letters.
Right.
And really it starts with, most spellers, as they call them, start with a stencil letterboard with wide cutout letters, and then they poke at it. So really what it is, it's really kind of training the motor.
Okay.
How to reliably spell.
Right.
As you can imagine, just like it's like any other kind of motor skill. Like, again, I don't know if you guys have ever tried golfing or gone out to a driving range and swung a golf court, right? So
Herb's a golfer.
okay,
Wow.
so right, the first time you went, though, you probably weren't great, right? There's a lot that goes into swinging a golf club to hit the ball perfectly to get that straight drive.
Well, I have a different kind of actually experience for that. I did great the first time I went out golfing.
Okay.
I was hitting greens, I was doing amazing. And it's like, wow, I like this. I'm going to keep doing this. And then it all went away.
Yeah. Then you start thinking about it too much.
Yeah.
Probably.
And then it's like,
right?
wow, I did this the first time. How come I can't do it anymore? So,
Yeah.
It makes you want to golf, and then it makes you not want to golf once you've already got hooked into it. So
that's the truth. Right. So, well, yeah, you're the exception, but you understand at least the role that the motor plays, right? And the brain, in terms of control it. Yeah. And so that's similar here. So so again, it's the goal is to help all these individuals get to the point where they can communicate independently, right? Where they can type independently. And a lot of them are reaching that point. Some of them don't, because again, there's other factors. There's regulation, right? Again, a lot of the kids are dysregulated. You're dealing with sensory issues, as you guys know. But getting back to what it is, they say 26 letters equals infinite possibilities. And so when I went down with Stone, so we flew down to San Diego, we had signed up, it was 6 sessions over 3 days, kind of 2 sessions a day. And, I'll just never forget the first session. And the way that, a lot of these practitioners do is they just kind of do short lessons about any topic, and they kind of read a paragraph and they'll spell out some letters or some of the words. And then they'll pause and they'll ask the student to spell. And that's kind of how you start practicing. So again, I'm going into this knowing that Stone had really, unfortunately, little formal education, right? Like, again, but what he got in these intensive eds was just kind of garbage as far as real academics. So my expectations were low, and I'll never forget, this first lesson was by Benjamin Franklin. So DM, or Dawn Marie, was going through it, and she was talking about Benjamin Franklin. And so again, so first, spell lightning, in Stone's pointing and he's doing it. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And then, she asked, a couple, and then she asked a question about, okay, where did his dad work? That was in the lesson.
Yeah.
And he spelled it out. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, like this is working. Like, we know he's in there. But the real mic drop moment, even that first session, was she asked him a question that wasn't in the lesson.
Uh-huh.
She said, who were we fighting in the Revolutionary War? And I'm like, again, just because I'm sitting behind, he can't, I'm just watching, right? And
Right.
and he spells out the British.
So
And I was
the lessons and things that he has been having that he hasn't been able to talk about, he's actually showing you that he's picked up stuff along the way.
He's picked up stuff yeah. And that's one of these big aha moments that so many parents now who are discovering, because now we're kind of growing into the thousands. It's still kind of a relatively new methodology. We're talking about, it's been kind of an evolution from facilitated communication to, they call it RPM, is another fork, kind of graduated that. And then people moved from that to spelling to communicate, and the spelling method. So like I said, they're all kind of flavors.
Yeah.
But we're still talking about, a relative population of maybe, I've seen estimates of, 10,000, 50. I mean, it's still,
Right.
you think about the millions, right, who are impacted. We're still in the infancy of this movement. But what I was saying is, again, everyone's kind of having these same moments, these same, joyful moments of like, man, my kid's in there. I knew it, but now I didn't know how much. I mean, I knew he was in there, but again, it's exceeded my expectations.
That's amazing. Yeah, to have your child exceed your expectations in that way. So when did they, because that's academic stuff, when did they actually breach, like talking to mom or dad or brother, or when did that kind of come about? What did that look like?
That's a great question. So again, typically there's kind of, within the methodology, what they do is it's kind of structured, because again, they really want to make sure that, confidence is huge, and making sure that they can spell accurately, because again, you're talking with a lot of, with kids who are dealing with a lot of trauma, right? And issues, as you can imagine, going through your whole life, not being able to communicate, having decisions made for, right? There's just a lot that understandably goes in. So there's a lot of it's just kind of built, making sure that they kind of go through step. So the first step is really just kind of, like I said, just literally spelling, just spell these words. And then they talk about, then you can ask kind of the known questions. So like I said, from a lesson, like if they talked about lightning, you ask them about, so it's really, the emphasis is really on the communication. Once they get proficient on that, then they kind of go into more open questions. And it really varies. Again, there's some parents I talk to whose spellers have been working on this for a number of months. Some have even a year, and they're still not quite open, but they're kind of working their way through it. Stone is the exception there. He just kind of flew through. And part of it, again, was because I was able to work with him. I mean, so again, obviously we went through these 6 sessions together. I was sold. I remember, crying, calling my wife, and just, she's like, we were just blown away, right? This is just such a miracle, it felt like. So soon, I bought the boards, kind of, and DM gave me lessons along the line. She had me sit in each time, because their goal, fortunately, also is to say, we want them to be independent. We want you to be able to work with them at home. We don't want you to have to come in here to do it all the time. So, so we were all in. So I was working with him, as much as I can. And he just, within, I don't know, people have asked, like within a month or 2 months, he was open, asking questions or answering questions about, like you said, the family, his brother, everything. Yeah, it was again, it was amazing. And to this day, again, he still does things almost on a daily basis that just blows me away.
That's amazing. So what, so I'm looking at the letter board that you showed us and thinking
Yep.
about the spelling and things like that. I'm thinking, well, how did he even learn how to spell, right? Or does he spell things correctly or just close enough that you understand what he's trying to get across?
He's very accurate. He's very
Wow.
accurate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
And do you
really,
still
again,
use the board, or are there tools that make it quicker than having to point at the letters and work out? Because that seems slow. It seems not quick. Would be a good way to put it.
It's not fast. Again, you could do it different speed. He's actually quite fast. He's faster on this. So to answer your question, Herb, he's moved on to using the keyboard. So a
Okay.
lot of times, like if he were here, so we would just open the chat window, and he's done this, with Q&A, and I just hold the keyboard, and he'll answer, and he'll just communicate that way. He has a weekly Zoom meeting with other spellers from around the country, which is great. Like, they have friends that they hang out with, and they love it. They finally have people that they can connect with. And again, some of them use their spelling partner. They have to maybe still be on the letter board, and the partner will. But in Stone's case, again, he's graduated to the point where he's using the keyboard, particularly like in school. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. But Christina, to answer your question again, they learn. And I guess the easiest way, again, as it was described to me, is you think about, we're so used to just talking, like our whole lives, like we're talking back in.
Right.
If we had no ability to talk, to speak, but what you still had, this great mind, this cognitive ability, what would you do? You'd be paying attention. You'd be soaking, you'd be so in tune to it all, especially again, if you're passionate about learning.
Right.
Which Stone is, and most of them are, right? We all, again, kids want to learn, right? Like that's an innate need and desire that they have. So they're figuring out how to do it themselves. Like, again, we discovered, Stone told us basically that he taught himself how to read when he was 4, and taught himself math. He just figured it out,
Yep.
basic math, and just, again, when you're sitting around and you don't have a lot of other things to do, you use your mind. And again, that's similar because, like, talked about his brother Ty, who's always in the gifted program. Ty also taught himself how to read when he was like 3 or 4. So some of these milestones actually we turned out matched up that we just, again, didn't realize
that he was there too, right? Because he
was there too, right?
What a miracle. And that he can now tell you about things when he was younger, right? That you didn't maybe understand at that point, or when he learned certain things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been, I would say, I mean, it's all just awesome, right? Like, it's just great, but there's some bittersweet moments in it, like there's some reckoning that you have to go through as a parent. Like, again, when he first became open, as we call it, when he first started being able to, I remember when we sat down, like, first time, because I'd been always asking him questions too, right? Like, that's the thing. And I'm like, hey, you must have questions for us that you've never been able to ask. And, one of the first questions was, why did you put me in special ed? Why did you put me in intensive ed when I couldn't learn in there? Why didn't you think I was smart?
Yeah.
And that's a really hard question to answer.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, I was honest. I just said that's all we knew. I mean, that's all that we didn't have options. We didn't, we tried what we could. If we could have done something different, we would have. And now that we can, we are, that's what we're doing. Right. And so, one thing I want to jump ahead a little bit to talk about, because again, this will impact those who are listening, who are interested, who may want to start spelling themselves, or, and also, again, as it ties to schools, is that once again, this was going to be like, should have been his quote unquote junior year in high school. It was September of that year when we first started. So I gave it a couple months because because at first there was still a little bit of that. This is too good to be true. Like you just, because, and there are haters out there. Again, we could talk about that. There is pushback, believe it or not, from the Speech Therapists Association, calling it all, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure to say, oh, to try to debunk it. And it's really hard to kind of overcome that. But again, I've sat there, worked with them. I mean, I'm like, you can't unsee what you see. Like there's no way I'm influenced. What's going on. So anyway, once I realized like this is a real thing, he has this ability and desire to learn age appropriate curriculum. I went to the school. I'm like, hey, let's get these letterboard in here, like so he can communicate, he can ask questions. And we were denied. They said, nope.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Okay,
and this is happening.
I want to interject a little bit here. So my wife was a teacher for 27 years. Right. Our child was autistic. We had him diagnosed before school because again, we've noticed something was different. He was super bright-eyed and normal when he was for the first year or two, and then the stuff that we're not supposed to talk about was put into his body and things started changing. And that is like something you don't necessarily get to talk about. And so we noticed changes. We noticed things that were going different. And when we got into school, we had the IEPs, we had the learning programs. And as much as the teachers wanted to do it, they also had massive amounts of kids in their class. And even as a teacher who was in the system, we were not able to get our kid the help that he really needed throughout the school system. Lots of times, so that's one of the reasons we're highly advocating for parents to take their children out of school, especially in this way, because these kids can learn, but not necessarily a school system that's designed for the average student, because they're not average. And some of them are like way above average, but the way they're treated and with their the changes and the differences in the way that they think and learn, it's like they will never be able to be brought up.
Oh, I agree. And also don't forget the emphasis on the standardized tests, right? And trying to use
the average, the standardized.
Trying to use that. And like I said earlier, if you can't, again, if you're dealing with a student who can't control their body,
correct,
right? They're screwed. Like again, something else that was revealed talking about apraxia, Stone has helped me understand. He's like, a lot of times I can't control my body. So again, an example of that, we were talking about the unreliable speech. There are times you'll ask him a question, hey, Stone, do you want pizza for dinner? He'll say yes. But he actually means no.
Oh.
He actually means the opposite. And there are times, again, so before, like, again, controlling his motor skills, they would give him an iPad, say, and just some basic reading lesson, and they're like, okay, is the answer A, B, C, or D? And he'd have to hit that. Well, in his mind, he's like, okay, the answer is D, but his body hits A, and he gets it wrong. So right, and they're like, oh yeah, well, he's in the 20 percentile or whatever. So
he's just not quite there yet.
Not getting it. So we're just going to set these his goals.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was denied that, like I said, age appropriate curriculum. So he was denied letterboard use. So again, because the speech therapist at the high school is a member of the professional association that has put out a positioning statement against this. Like they are actively working against it. And I'll send you guys a copy of it. You'll be blown away.
Whoa. Yeah.
So they're using this as a reason to say, oh, it could be harmful. It takes away from their ability to communicate independently. Hell, Stone couldn't communicate at all, let alone independently before this. So, it's ridiculous. And then again, so they denied him that, and then they denied him the education. And so that's when we finally took, we had to take legal action.
Yeah.
And we pulled him out, of the school finally, because we're like, this is awful.
This is ridiculous. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. He hated going, right? Because again, they were having him like stack blocks or count coins. Things that you would have a second grader do.
Right.
And now,
gosh. And then
Yeah.
you wonder why they're acting out, why they are screaming, or why
Yes.
they're hitting at things, or why they're running
Yes.
down the hall, because they're so frustrated that they can't say or tell us what they really want.
And exactly. No, that's exactly right. And again, it's kind of funny because again, Stone has validated that since then. He was saying like, again, he's so smart.
Yeah.
He figured out like he would just act out, not in a bad way.
Right.
But he got to the point where like he like hit another student, which is so out of character for him. Like when we found, we're like, what the hell? Like he is like the chillest. But he told us later, like, he was hoping that it would get him kicked out of school.
Mhm. Yeah.
That was that. Like there was a method to the mat, right?
Right. Yeah.
But again,
and because he's seen other kids do those kind of things, and those were the consequences, right? If you,
but not for him, because they didn't, again, and it just kind of showed again the lack of presuming competence on their part. They're like, oh, must have been something, so his punishment was he had to eat lunch with his teacher.
Now a few words about vibrant family education.
How many entrepreneurs and business owners start out on this journey to make a better life for their family, only to find that it took so much more time and effort than they were expecting that they had even less time for their family? I know I did.
At Vibrant Family Education, we want to help you reach your family goals while you're still building towards your business goals. We do this by bringing you the third leg of the stool to keep your family upright, family education development.
By bringing your children's education home, you will be able to model your work ethic and family values as you overcome obstacles and challenges to build your business. Instead of learning facts to pass tests, your children can be watching and seeing the dedication it takes to build your business and the legacy you want to create for their future. They will be able to witness the struggles and joys, the wins and the losses, and learn from you how to persevere and grow in life.
Instead of waiting until you get successful to spend more time with your family, start with the end goal in mind and bring your family home. Instead of trying to repair your family after you reach success, let us help you start achieving your family goals from the outset. Learn to be successful with your family now, and no matter what happens in the future, they will be better prepared for life, especially after watching how you cared for and built not only a business, but a healthy, happy, and successful family.
We offer a wide range of educational services, including how to easily get started with homeschooling. Come visit us at vibrantfamilyeducation.com and let us show you how. And now back to our guest.
Yeah.
And so like they didn't feel like he would be capable of planning something like, so, and
Right.
then he said he would lock himself in the bathroom and start yelling, and they couldn't get him to stop. And then so they would call me, and actually he was at a school that literally is like 100 yards from us. He kind of went from one high school to this work experience program. So they'd call me and they're like, oh, sorry, Mr. Kaufer, Stone's acting, we're not sure what's wrong. He seems really upset. And I'd go pick him up, right? I go over there. I'm like, hey, Stone. And he'd just be laughing, walking home. Like, yeah, it worked. And he told me, like, yeah, I did that to get out because I didn't want to be there.
Right. And that so totally makes sense now that he can express himself in this way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been kind of quiet because I've been put into my feels for this, because I'm going back through lots of stuff that happened with our child.
I'll bet.
Our son was actually very high functioning. He actually could write and talk. He actually writes fan fiction and does stuff like that. But I like remember we would ask him what he wanted for dinner, and when we first got married, we didn't have a lot of different meals. We were still learning how to cook. So there was this one time, it's like we asked him and he said he wanted a bum sandwich. And it took us like almost a year to figure out what that was. But one of the things that we would cook often was a chicken patty, the like the round Costco, they look like hamburger patties, but they're chicken patties, and you put them on a hamburger bun, and so you make a chicken sandwich. And one day we made those and he's like, oh, bum sandwich. And I was like, wait. This bum sandwich, because he asked for it all the time and we could never explain it to us. So it's like once you get these little aha moments, like where he is actually talking about something, but again, he is very, very high functioning,
but we still didn't always understand. And one of the things that with him was that he would talk 3 steps ahead. He'd already figured out what he wanted to say three sentences down the road for the conversation, and then people wouldn't understand what he was talking about because he was already farther down the conversation in his brain, and that's what he was saying. So all of those kinds of things, that communication that wasn't easy to understand.
And you remember, right? And you know how it's frustrating for both parties, right? When you're
Yeah.
in that situation, because you want so desperately, you want to help, you want to be there for your child.
Yes.
You want to understand what I want. I want to give you what you're asking for. I want, whatever.
Right.
And when you're at that point, you can't. It always, broke my heart. I mean, just
Yeah,
every
we went to a
time.
class early on when we figured it out. It's called My Child's Different and It Hurts.
Mm,
And
yeah.
One of the
we had to get real honest with that, because having a child that's different makes us feel guilty, makes the parents, there's trauma that the parents go through as well.
Yep.
And it's like, could we do something different? And back then, it's like there wasn't a whole lot, because actually back then there weren't really all that many autistic children, and now that's just like,
because he's 33. He turned 33 in July. So
Okay.
we're
Okay. So
talking,
he's an adult, at
he's
this
an adult
point.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had the extra guilt of, I'm a teacher. Why can't I figure this out? If I can
Right.
teach other kids, why can't I figure out how to teach my own child sometimes, And it just took a lot of years of experience working with him, working in my classroom to figure out what I know now.
I think the guilt, for parents it's a real thing. It's
Yeah.
not talked about a lot. Fortunately, it is again within this community, the spelling community.
Mhm.
There was a Facebook group that was started,
Yeah.
actually by Dawn Marie, the woman I told you about, who has these spelling centers, and it's kind of
Yeah.
grown. And it's just, it's fantastic for all the right reasons. The community is right, sharing those experiences and talking about the guilt, and even though I don't know about your son, but Stone, like one of the first things he told my wife Renee and I is, he said, "Don't feel guilty. Like, I know
Oh,
you've
wow.
done your
Yeah.
best."
That's awesome.
it's amazing how much that doesn't help, but it does.
Exactly,
It doesn't.
right. It's like it's like I said, "Thank you, Stone," but I still do. Like, you just can't
Yep.
not, because again, it's one of those things where I think about the years,
Right. Yeah.
lost.
Okay. So jump into, what is he doing now? What are you looking forward to in the future now that you have this communication system that he's opening up?
How long have you been working with him now? 6 months, you said?
Oh no, it's about just over 2 years.
2 years.
Over 2 years. Yeah. Yep. So so now again, thank you for bringing it to the present, because we're in a great spot. It's exciting. Once I pulled him out of school, we were able to get him placed into, we had to do some research. We found a local private school called Brightmont Academy they were open, because one of the things I needed is to be able to take him to a place where he could use a letterboard.
Right.
And again, this is so new that most schools, they're like, what are you talking about? And the
Yeah.
director of Brightmont said, well, why don't you come in and we'll talk. And I said, great, I'll bring in Stone. And it was great. This is the first. Stone still talks about it. He loved that he was part of the process, because we were trying to decide, do we homeschool? Do we, what path do we go?
Yeah.
So he went in, and the director was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Of course, we'll support it. So we got him in, and he's been going to Brightmont for about 1.5 years now. And again, started with environmental science and intro to algebra, right? Because again, he never had academic
Correct.
classes. And this is a story I love to tell, because it was just so profound. So I remember the first day going in, and the teachers were right there, and from day one they presumed competence, right? Like and it's one-on-one instruction, which is great. So it's just us in the classroom. I'm there as his communication regulation partner. And so the environmental science teacher, launched into her, just start going into her lesson. As she paused, at one point, and says, Stone, do you have any questions? And, I almost started crying, because I'm like, this is the first time he can ask a question in a classroom.
Right. Yeah. And did he have a question? Did he tell you something?
Oh yeah. He said yes. And I always say, I wish I remember what the question was, because it would make the story even better. I mean, it was something about volcanoes or something along those lines. But I just remember just thinking, like, after all these years, he finally has a chance to participate in his education. And so now he took his first semester of environmental education. He crushed intro to algebra. He crushed algebra. He's now into geometry. He's getting an A in geometry, and they added English to his to his schedule. He's been doing that for about 6 months. Loves that. He loves writing. He writes stories. He writes poetry. He writes songs. He has a song that I'll have to share with you the link that maybe you could include. Speech Can Suck It. He wrote on the fly, like it's talking. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That is so inspiring and so amazing. Wow. I really, wow, we've got to figure out how to get this podcast out there for more people who are just trying to figure out these different things, how to, wow.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why, again, and I so appreciate this opportunity because, one of the things Stone has talked about, what he wants to do. So his goal, so again, what we need to do is get him the credits. He fortunately has credits that he earned in high school. He's going to grad. He wants to get his diploma. And one of the first things he told me when I asked him, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? That was one of my questions. What are you passionate about? Because he said, I'm passionate about learning. I said, okay, great. And he's like, I just love learning. I said, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to go to Harvard. Again, this is back when I didn't even know if he knew what Harvard was, right?
Right.
And yeah,
Whoa.
so his goal, he wants to go to Harvard. And Harvard is one of the growing number of colleges that actually provides for accommodation for students, a communication partner. They recognize that as someone who can be part of the student experience there. So that's what we're getting.
What he wants to learn when he gets to Harvard?
He wants to study law. Oh yeah, so that's what it's getting. He wants to be an advocate. He wants to, and again, so many of these other kids, that's where they're at. They want to help non-speakers because they know what they're going through, and they know that they're being denied their rights, and they want to fight to help this population. So that's what he has his eyes on. That's his goal, is he wants to be a Harvard trained attorney.
Right? That would be amazing. And just, oh man, I can just even see in the future as this progresses and moves on, all of that happens, and all of a sudden we have a documentary about Stone and the advocacy and everything he does to get to where he's going. Wow.
Yeah.
You want to make me cry. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's like I said, it is a great story. It's an amazing journey, as I tell, it's just, and then that's why I want to help also do the same, right? Use my voice to help educate, share, talk about, this opportunity that, again, I never knew. And like I said, it's not really the guilt. I don't know what the word is, but again, it's that real, I feel like it's kind of not like a near death experience, but realizing like how close we were to not getting on this path ourselves. If it weren't for my friend calling, telling us about this, right? Like he was on this other path of, that was just awful. And by comparison, and he talks about, he said, spelling saved my life.
Yeah.
Not just it changed my life, it saved my life.
Right. Yeah, because he would have continued to most likely be looked at someone who needed to live at home, be under your constant care all the time, et cetera, et cetera. And now there's that possibility, if he wants to branch out and go do his own things. And there
are so many stories that come to mind of similar things and things that I've watched, because I absorb information like in a really strange way. So I watched a documentary about this African boy who was deaf and how his parents all treated him like he was dumb. And then he met other people who were deaf and went to a deaf school and realized he wasn't dumb. And just the look of joy on his face. The story of Helen Keller.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That came to mind.
That resonates.
There's another story of a quadriplegic from birth, and then they gave him a thing and he was able to type and he started writing beautiful stories. Mm-hmm. So it's people who are trapped in their own bodies and their minds are completely active and open and aware, and just the way they're treated is like heartbreaking and it's shameful. So I think part of that is also a shame involved in that as well, that there's these amazing, bright individuals who are trapped in this shell that doesn't work for what's going on in their mind. And so that story really does need to get out there, and it's amazing that we're finding new ways to reach out to these people. And so the spelling method is absolutely amazing, and I am so happy that you found it and that you're bringing it out to the world.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you're right. Like you said, I think again, there's so many lessons to be learned through this, and I mean, just in life in general, right? But through this, and like you were saying, Herb, it's just that as a society, we really, we've come, we've come certain distance, right? Like again, I think that there's definitely obviously more awareness,
Yeah.
generally more acceptance of the
Mhm.
autistic community. Again, we've had really good, where we live. So we're seeing progress, but need to see more. And I said, I think that next big jump is the presuming competence from the get-go, like realizing that, like I said, it may not look like, what you're used to it looking like when someone's listening to you. But again, like, because these kids are stimming, they're doing all these types of things, and we're always assuming, oh, they're not paying attention. Yes, they are. They're paying
They hear
attention.
everything.
They hear everything. Stone is downstairs. We live in a two-story house. My office is. I guarantee you, I'll get off this, and he'll tell me. He'll tell me about the podcast. He's listening to this, even though,
Wow.
yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be amazing that someday, somehow, whether he can type it and have like a voice activation or something where he could come and share some of this for himself, right? That would
Yeah,
be
absolutely. That
super
we'll get
Stephen
there.
Hawking like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great analogy, right? It's just again, and just real quick on that point, right? So here's where again one of the obstacles we're running into is that we have kids who are never able to communicate, who are now able to. And like I said, the presumption was that they're intellectually disabled because of
Couldn't speak.
these tests or whatever, right? So they have to overcome this hurdle. Whereas like with Stephen Hawking, he had a voice, right? And it went from having it to losing it. So no one ever thought much about, okay, so that he's communicating, like they know that that's him.
Yeah.
That's a major difference. That again, we're just going to have to overcome as a society.
Well, so here comes the out of the back stuff. Is my wife was always very much of the presumed competence, and one of the reasons she actually left the school is because a lot of the political stuff where we had to assume non-competence. And I'm, I probably shouldn't necessarily go this, but we had a lot of poor children and a lot of other race children, and they were given special consideration. Oh, you can't make them do that because they might not
be able
to accomplish it. And fully abled, fully bodied, smart little kids, but they're being told that they're not the same. And so even with fully able-bodied children, to presume competence is almost considered like racially wrong now. And that also is mind-boggling. So even within the school system with supposedly able-bodied children, there is still this problem of not presuming competence, of not
across the board, right?
Across the board, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And again, that's part of why we do this, is because children are amazing, and if you teach them how to learn, if you give them the love of learning like Stone has, Stone now loves to learn. Well, look at what he wants to do. He wants to make it so other people in his situation can find that love. And you put these kids in these boxes in school, and you tell them that they're not good enough, and then that love goes away, and then you end up with a generation of children who are frustrated and angry. Half of our children and half of the children graduating at the senior level read at or below a 6th grade level, because they're as soon as they miss something, that's on the national website of the educate. What is that?
Department of Education.
Department of Education. You can go in there and look up the stats yourself. But as soon as they miss something, as soon as they get left behind, they are now presumed to be less than, and they're just skipped over. And so, our whole system is not working in that way. So
thank you
for being
the empowered parent.
for taking that, and thanks Stone as well for him wanting to advocate, because if we can get that through at that level, then it can work throughout the whole different school system. And it's amazing what what this can bring about. So, I'm not sure I have a question in there, but I just wanted to point
I
that
agree.
out
Yeah.
as kind of a whole little out of the box, what's been going through my mind. And it's like, wow, this is huge.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's something that we need to raise at more of a national level in terms of how we're going to handle this, because kids, like you said, kids are smart, they want to learn, but kids are diverse. And again, whether you're talking about disabilities, background, whatever they are, and it's not, the answer isn't like, again, getting back to like standardized tests or saying that kids should be at this, be able to do A, B, or C at this age is ridiculous. Because, again, we know kids, just like people, develop differently. Everyone's different, and so I think, I don't have the
Stone was
answer.
treated like he was an infant until he was 16 or 17. And,
just
and then in a year or two, he progressed to the point where he's looking at going to Harvard. It's like the brain is an amazing thing. And once children get that wanting to learn, they can get caught up, they can excel, they go at their own rate. They are, that's kind of, again, that's why we started this, because there are
which is
so
good
many
for
people
you.
who are being left out and denied those opportunities.
No, they need, like you said, they need the opportunity, they need the support. They and a lot of stuff is kind of basic, right? Like, again, it's, going back to, again, to like what our initial ask was for the letter board in the classroom. And again, that opens up a whole different discussion as far as why they push back and some of those things. But if you think about it, it's a pretty, there is some training that has to go into being a communication partner, but it's relatively minor. Again, it's really about having trust between the speller and the partner. But the districts are like, no, we don't. Most of them now. Very few across the country have opened up to it once they've been pushed, and there have been advocates there.
But it wasn't even that you were expecting the district to train somebody and have somebody. You were willing to go in and be with him.
I was willing to go in, or we were even willing to pay for the training. Because there are already para educators in his class, like there are already two, paras in there who he knew and could work, that would have been perfect. And again, wouldn't it be like full-time one-on-one? At that point, I wasn't even thinking that. It was just more like, hey, if he had a question, like have someone there that he could ask a question or answer, just to be able to participate in the class. There are ways that you could at least try to do that, right? But the pushback was so strong and so immediate. It was breathtaking. I mean, I'll never, again, it's just one of those IEP meetings. I'll never forget sitting there. And when they denied it, and they're, again, listing the ASHA statement as their primary reason, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, wow, I was stunned.
So beyond the education, beyond the learning, beyond the wow, he can read, he can do math, what is it that is like surprising? What is it he's liking to do? You said he writes poetry, you said he's writing songs, but is there physical activities that he's out there? It's like, wow, I really wanted to do this. Is there things that he's able to find passion at and live more of a life besides just the learning in his brain? Is he expanding? Where else is he expanding?
I mean, so it's more like it's kind of expand in terms of some of the things that he was doing, but discovering that he really enjoys. So like he likes to play basketball. Like, so he wants to go out. So he loves, we go going hiking. He loves hiking. So we're talking about going hiking and shooting hoops.
One of the things at all beforehand?
I mean, I could tell he liked hiking because I always took he and his brother out hiking, from a young age. It's something we did. And also, again, because I knew that was something that was doable for him. But he loves nature. But now he's been able to tell me, like, yeah, this is what I love to do. He loves sports. One of the things I didn't know is he's a huge sports fan. So again, this is where the guilt factor comes in, because again, as you know, being familiar with the autistic community, he was hypersensitive to noises and a lot of those things, right? So, I'm an Oregon Duck. I'm actually wearing my sweatshirt. You see, and I've just a passionate football fan. And so from a young age, I started taking his brother Ty to Oregon Duck games like once or twice a year for the experience. but we never thought to take Stone, particularly because, again, we're especially worried about, first of all, sitting in a place
Right. For so long. Yep.
for so long, the noise, like we just
Yeah.
didn't think it was necessarily a good fit. But there's part of me that's like, I want him to experience this, especially as I could tell he was getting more comfortable with different, as he grew and
Right.
matured.
Yeah.
And so I took him 3 years ago. It was finally his turn to get to go with me. And he's writing a story about it actually now. He's in the middle of
Wow.
talking about how cool it was. And at the time, and that was really, actually, this is again kind of a cool story, is that while we were there, I took pictures, of course, and videos of, like when the duck comes out, the team comes, all the excitement, right?
Yeah.
And he loves to go through his iPad, and so I save everything to his iPad. It's all synced. And this was before spelling. It was the first time I really could tell that he was connected to us in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
He had pulled up the video and turned it around to show it to me, and he said Ducks game. And like that was like major at the time. And it was trying to say like how much he liked it. So anyway, he loves watching sports. He loves hanging out watching sports with me. The other night, hockey season just started. He sat down with me. I could tell he was excited. I said, "What's up?" He's like, "I'm really happy. I'm really happy hockey season's back." Like that's just,
Wow.
as a
Awesome.
sports loving dad, like just to have a sports loving son to hang around and watch sports with, it's just awesome.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, David, this has been so inspiring. And I really hope that a lot of the families who are listening really take this to heart. It's like the presumed competence for one. And the second is keep looking, keep working till you find something that works with your kiddo, because there's got to be something out there. And, if it can just increase their love and their life a little bit, it's so worth it. So thank you for sharing all of that. Remind us, or remind the audience, how they can either get a hold of you to maybe either ask questions or find the program or something. What's going to be down in the show notes for people to contact you?
Sure. Yeah. Just go to my website. It's davidkaufer.com. And then, I've got a blog where I've talked about some of these experiences, and you can just reach me through the website. It's the easiest.
Excellent. Perfect. Was there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to cover today?
No. I mean, there probably, but no, this is like, I think we covered a lot of the great stuff. And I just, I can't thank you enough, again, for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here and for dropping those gold nuggets, those inspiring times. And really, audience, please take this to heart and help somebody near and dear to you by learning and exploring and helping grow that love of learning.
Yeah, and again, there's also this guilt towards me, is like, did we do enough for our son? Could we have found more that was going on when we were going through this? So, because there's also this tendency to, after a while, to kind of start to give up, to start to feel hopeless. But and all of that, there's all of that. So if you have these children that are awesome like this, don't give up. They're keep looking till you find that breakthrough. Keep looking, because right now there are so many different modalities coming up. There are so many different ways to find what works, and just keep going, because it is life-changing for your whole family.
I agree. If I say one thing, though, again, I think one opportunity that families have today that you certainly didn't, and even we didn't when we were younger, is the communities that exist for support that you can turn to and ask. And, so I really encourage people. I think that's just so invaluable.
Yep, absolutely. Find an educator that helps you if you need that. Find a parent group to support you if you need that. And find that group for your child where they feel comfortable as well. Exactly. All right, audience, it's been another wonderful episode. We are so glad that you have been joining us and staying with us. Please make sure you leave us a like, or review, a comment. And I don't know if you know, but you can also give us tips to help keep the show going. There's a link down in the show notes for that too. Anyway, until next time, we are so glad you're listening, and bye for now.
Have a great day. Bye for now.
Hello, and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts